Well, the people who work at ESPN allegedly are not, let's just say, comfortable or happy, whichever term you might want to use, with the fact that Stephen A. Smith, number one, has a podcast here on YouTube, and number two, that he decided he wanted to have a nice little interview and discussion with Clay Travis. Now, guys, I'm going to link the episode in the description box for you guys. I just got through watching it, and I'll probably watch it again tonight, but I don't think my opinion is going to change. The thing is this right here. This right here is how a discussion should be had between somebody who is a little bit more right-leaning versus somebody who's a little bit more left-leaning. Now, guys, we know that ESPN for a long time has kind of sort of been trying to board the whole woke train. This is just kind of who they are, and Stephen A. Smith has kind of been the chief parent. But Stephen A. recently has revealed things that, quite frankly, don't exactly go along with their agenda. For example, the other day he came out and said that he did not think that Donald Trump was racist. He also went on Fox News and actually had a rational discussion, at least half of a rational discussion with Jesse Waters before ultimately basically getting on his knees for the vice president. He also has been on Sean Hannity from time to time. He's, let's just put it this way here. Stephen A., regardless of the woke that he plays on television, he's really and truly not woke. They're paying him to be woke. As I have said before, it's all scripted. All you got to do is, if you can find the old videos that Kwame Brown did on him, you will know that Stephen A. Smith, for the most part, is given talking points. And he goes out there and he acts the part. Now, we'll show you a small clip of the interview here in a second, but I want to go ahead and say this really quick. This video right here, for the most part, is about the continuing decline of the product of ESPN and why it is that they are scared to death to lose the two A's that are part of their brand, that there being the NBA and that right there also being Stephen A. Smith. Now, really quick, why else would Stephen A. Smith start a podcast? You see, Stephen A. Smith has a podcast called the No Mercy Podcast. This podcast has roughly 77,000 subscribers. And if Stephen A. wanted to, he could probably go to Spotify. He could probably go to any podcasting network out there and probably make a lot of money. His own show, free from ESPN, he would definitely pull in a pretty big audience, even if it was on the struggling BET network or anywhere in the world. ABC, NBC, CBS, anywhere he could go, he could probably make a lot of money. The problem is anybody going to watch him, which is also something else too, because, well, it's very possible that maybe Stephen A. is kind of showing a little bit more of his true self, because he knows that what ESPN has been doing for the past few years is, quite frankly, wrong. Do I need to remind you?
You are white. I am black.
White supremacy, slave trade.
Because you're white.
Racial discrimination, African Americans, black women.
White privilege. White privilege. White privilege. White people should feel a certain amount of guilt.
Black men. White analysts. Black dude. Racism. White dude. I am a black man. My blackness, a lot of racists out there.
Racist. 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 Racist.
Black guy versus a white guy.
Racist.
Racist.
Race riots.
White privilege.
Black players.
Colorism, fairer skin, racism, racism, black man, white people, a black young man, white guys, black man, white girl, black people.
We don't know, but we do know this. Since you do want to bring it up, we do know this, that when it comes to MVP voting, 80% of the voters are white American. 20% or other.
The next day.
I want to correct something here from yesterday's show. When Kendrick Perkins said 80% of NBA voters for the MVP award are white. The NBA publicly announces the voters each year, and after review, it is clear the panel is much more diverse than what was portrayed by Kendrick Perkins, and we wanted to make sure that we correct.
What do? You say, look, I got another year on my contract or year and a half on my contract. My contract's pretty much guaranteed. They're paying me all this money, and of course, I also get a little bit of money here and there for additional stuff like ratings bonuses, stuff like that. It's already in my contract, so why not go ahead at my age and go ahead and create a podcast and go ahead and start talking about issues that I really and truly care about. Of course, that there being Stephen A. being a little bit more to the center than people might actually know. He just simply plays a lefty on TV. As a matter of fact, I would argue that the vast majority of the wokes on TV are not really and truly woke. I mean, Jalen Rose is too freaking dumb to be woke, if you ask me. I'll just go ahead and say that right now. However, the reporting of this came from these two networks, god-awful announcing, which is, I meant to say websites. And the other one's called like Big League something. Just know that they are ran by a couple of wokes, and I'm putting up a picture right now of these individuals So that way you guys can see that they're probably dudes who've never been laid before. I'm not going to get too far into that because next thing you know, I'm going to go into a tangent that quite frankly is going to get me removed from YouTube. But the fact of the matter is that this interview was actually a pretty good interview. I mean, it's exactly the way you might want to have a discussion with somebody that you disagree with. Now, granted, it was a little bit soft, but at the end of the day, it for the most part was a discussion. It's one of the reasons why I think that debates, quite frankly, are useless. We need to have the more discussion format so that way people can get a better understanding of who one another are. When we're doing debates, we're simply just scoring points against one another. We're interrupting one another. Next thing you know, we go entirely crazy and the entire thing devolves. The idea behind debate is to possibly sway the audience to maybe your thinking, kick around some ideas. However, the problem is that the bases are so strongly aligned against one another that you cannot have that. But there's this one little moment in this debate that I think you guys, or not really debate, but discussion, I think you guys might want to pay very close attention to. So I went ahead and kind of added this in. So make sure you guys pay very, very close attention. And of course, we'll come back to the other side. But there is one gripe that I do have about this, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. So let's go ahead and watch this.
In 2020, when you announced that you were voting for Donald Trump, you said you had never voted Republican before then.
Correct.
So when people listen to you on the radio, or they read your stuff and with Outkick, or they see you on Fox News because you contribute to Fox News. I've seen you on Hannity with his crazy self. I mean, you know that's my man, but I think he's crazy. You know that, but that's all right though. That's right. He knows I think he's crazy.
There were more of that. He's my guy, but I think he's crazy. Like my wife would say, he's my husband, but I think he's crazy on something.
Yeah. That happens. But what do you say to people that says about Clay Travis? How the hell did you get to this point? If you never voted for Republican, you never voted for Republican in your life until 2020. How did you become this guy who I'm not going to call you a right winger or anything like that. I mean, I don't believe most of us live on the fringes. You know, the reality, you're entitled to your beliefs and your opinions. I'm not here to question that. All I'm asking is, how did you get to a point where you were a guy that voted for Barack Obama twice, never voted for a Republican, to succeeding Rush Limbaugh and being considered a prominent voice for the right? I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so first of all, Obama 2008 would be a Republican campaign now. If you go back and look at Obama 2008, what was the number one narrative, number one story that he sold? He sold, even me, a mixed race kid from Hawaii with a funky name, can grow up to be the president of the United States.
Okay.
That was not very different than Bill Clinton 1992, which
Fair.
I'm a kid from Hope, Arkansas, single parent. I'm not supposed to be here. So Obama 2008, to me, and this is interesting, Stephen A., it's the only presidential campaign that both parties in 21st century accepted was one, right? Every other one, there's like a tiny little twitch. You can say, oh, if more people showed up in Ohio or whatever. Obama 2008, I think, was the best campaign that anybody has run in the 21st century. Okay? And let me explain why.
Social media.
Oh, to me, Obama represented America is the greatest country that's ever existed in the history of the world. And he attracted lots of people who were white, Hispanic, Asian, that message, new residents, recent immigrants, it resonated because everybody wants to believe, to your point, that any kid that's born today, regardless of their mom or dad, regardless of where they start, could end up president of the United States. That was Obama's message. I think that what happened was the Democrats, they undervalued how incredibly talented of a politician Barack Obama was. And they took as his legacy, we have to have a minority on the ticket or a woman. Hillary Clinton in 2016, I voted for Gary Johnson, as I've said publicly, the libertarian.
Really quick, before I get to this very quick gripe that I have with that last part of what Clay said, I want to just go and let you guys know that the New York Post is reporting that, ESPN is about to do more layoffs. So I guess the woke welfare train is, in fact, ending. But let me go ahead and say this to Clay. Clay, with all due respect, Barack Obama was not a talented politician. He was not a talented politician at all. He was a talented speaker. He was very charismatic. That is really all he was. I advise you guys go read the book by Ed Klein, The Amateur, which, by the way, is a Democrat critiquing another Democrat. Ed Klein, of course, was actually in charge over the New York Times, and he found out through talking to mostly Democrats that they actually did not like Obama because he thought that he was the smartest person in the room. Let me go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about this. When Obama first came into office, he came into office with an overwhelming congressional majority. He came into Congress with an overwhelming Senate majority, 59 Democrat senators, 2 independents that caucused with the Democratic Party. Those right there, of course, being one of them, I think, was Bernie Sanders. And they slammed through Obamacare, an extremely unpopular piece of legislation. Republicans, of course, responded, Republican voters and Tea Party voters, to vote the vast majority of these people out of office. Of course, Republicans did not win in 2012, mostly due to the candidate strength that they had with Mitt Romney. But the fact of the matter is this right here. Obama was not a talented politician. Bill Clinton, for all of his faults, was a talented politician. He was able to get the other side to come over and work with him during the days of Newt Gingrich. Even though he did not want to actually do it, he still did that. Richard Nixon, for all of his faults, was able to get the opposite side to work with him. Of course, bipartisanship nowadays doesn't exactly work. As I've said before, the only thing bipartisanship is nowadays is an excuse for politicians on both sides of the aisle to bend you over and do the, Also, something else, too. Ronald Reagan had to work with the other side to get tax cuts. Herbert Walker Bush had to work with the other side of the aisle. Those were actual talented politicians. Hell, Donald Trump had to work with the other side of the aisle to get the First Step Act. Barack Hussein Obama was not a good politician at all. He was actually a horrible politician. He was just an extremely talented speaker. By the way, 2-time voter of Obama, replacing Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, and also something else too. He also revealed in 2016 that he voted for Gary Johnson. Are we sure that we're picking our conservative commentators correctly here? Clay Travis, the ultra-conservative, which is really not that conservative, host of Outkick or owner of Outkick, voted for Barack Hussein Obama twice. Now, guys, there is one more thing that I'm going to be mentioning about Obama in this video, and it's not in a hateful manner or anything like that because normally I rag upon him. As a matter of fact, I probably should be thanking him in a way. It's because of him being full of crap, kind of opened my eyes up a lot to a lot of the bull crap that was going on in the world. Even though I disliked him for several years, I do at least thank him in regards to, let's just say that his BS kind of red pilled me in a lot of ways that, quite frankly, I did not know I could be red pilled. But the fact of the matter is this right here. Clay Travis is a guy who actually looked at the other side of the aisle, probably because he was open, kind of like what he said there, a little bit more open-minded, and he probably believed in it. You see, a lot of people, when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, they believed the hope and change thing. I personally did not. I played it safe and voted for John McCain, and in reality, I kind of wish I just hadn't participated at all. And the same thing happened in 2012. But then again, though, if I had not gotten involved in 2012, I would not know the knowledge that I have today. So I guess it was actually a good thing, even though, quite frankly, the candidate that we had to run against Obama wasn't exactly somebody who was exactly trustworthy or even wanted to win. That is a different topic altogether. We may even do projects on it in the near future. I keep on saying that, but mostly because I keep thinking it out loud. But the fact of the matter is this right here. This right here is how discussion should be had. Now, when Stephen A. was on First Take, or actually still is on First Take, for a while there, they were setting up with Max Kellerman. Now, Max Kellerman, in a lot of ways, some people argue could not hang with him. I would argue that Max Kellerman's problem was that he was trying to out-woke Stephen A. I mean, this right here was a guy who was Jewish, who's white, and I'm not trying to make fun of him or anything like that. But every day he used to throw out the same anti-white, basically, I'm blacker than you are nonsense to the point to where it quite frankly made people sick. If ESPN should be worried about anything, maybe they should be worried about the host that they bring on and the agenda that quite frankly they're trying to push. It is because of ESPN's woke agenda that nobody is actually tuning in. It is also the reason why the NBA is considering moving their product back to NBC, which would actually be great. I would actually tune in to the NBA on NBC because when it was on NBC, it was a much, much better product. Then again, though, guys, we could also be getting the same wokes over there at NBC. Fact of the matter is that ESPN is a bit of a crossroads. They got to ask themselves a question. Is the money that we're losing every day, is it worth signing this guy to a contract in which Stephen A. would probably demand right around $25 million a year to be there for probably another 2 to 3 years? Because he right now at this moment in time is pretty much the face of their brand. Also, something else too, if ESPN sees that he's not carrying the agenda off work, Stephen A. could eventually get upset and demand to be released from contract. But I can promise you right now that Stephen A. would not leave without the cash. Fact of the matter is that ESPN put themselves in this hole a long time ago, and of course they're kind of sort of, let's just say, they're kind of reaping what the hell they have sown. Now, Stephen A., like I said before, if he wanted to, he can make a lot of money on this podcast. As a matter of fact, he could probably, if he wanted to, bring back Skip Bayless and recreate Cold Pizza or the original First Take with him. It was actually much, much more enjoyable when those two were on instead of having Max Kellerman be there to outwoke Stephen A. every chance he got. Fact of the matter is that First Take was just mindless drivel, and after a while, you keep hearing because you were born white, you're obviously bad. Which, by the way, you can't help the skin tone that you were born. Which, by the way, was discussed in this episode. I advise you guys to go check it out. It's actually a pretty good discussion. The thing is this right here. After a while, people's minds get a little bit tuned out to it, and they want nothing to do with the wokeness because they know that the wokeness at the end of the day is just bullcrap, and it's also a sign that these people are unhappy, a lot like the wokes who run the two newspapers that I was talking about, or the two online websites. Let's just be honest. The infected really and truly are unhappy people, and of course, they're finding a way to spread that unhappiness to everyone in the world through every single medium they can, including the wide world of sports. Before I put an end to this video, there is something I do need to bring up, but I'm kind of going back to Obama. Now, this right here is not meant to be scathing or anything, but hear me out for a quick second. I had a conversation with somebody that I know pretty well. Okay, I'm not going to say who it was. Not going to give away any names or anything. I don't do that. I mean, hell, I don't even give away my subscriber names. And if I do even bring up a comment, I always try to keep their names secret, obviously for security purposes. But here's the thing. I had a conversation with this individual. This individual also voted for Barack Obama twice. They voted for Hillary Clinton, and in 2020, they actually stayed home. That individual since then has told me on several occasions, bring back Donald Trump. Okay, they've said that on several occasions. And you got to wonder, how was it that this person got red pill on the issue? What's called the situation that they're living in. It's the times that they're living in. Obviously, when you see the price of gas go up, you see the price of food go up, you're probably going to think that maybe what you're being told on television is not actually reality. I've been saying this for a while. There's a reason why there's a demographic shift in the vote, and there's also a reason why there is, let's just say, not just the demographic shift, but you're also seeing a lot of people being quote-unquote red pills. Like, there's always a reason why there's been a swing in every single election since at least 2000. The thing is this right here. This individual still believes that Obama was a very good president. Now, I'm not trying to say that I think that this person was wrong or whatnot, which even though I do disagree with said individual, I do need to say this right here. One of the reasons why some people still feel this way is because during that time when he was in office, the economy was trash. I already knew the Obama administration was horrible. I already knew it was garbage. I mean, there was not a single thing that I was happy about, but I'm kind of giving you guys their perspective. I think the real reason why they may feel this way is because the times were a little bit different. It still felt to a certain degree like we were a little bit too carefree or still a little bit carefree. But let me kind of clamp down a little bit harder. One of the things that we love to say is that if you lived in the 90s, chances are you probably lived in the last carefree decade. I kind of disagree with that. I think the 80s was the last carefree decade. When Clinton was in office, you had the federal government storm a place called Waco, which I don't even think they had a warrant for. Even though David Koresh was doing some bad stuff there, it obviously shouldn't have been stormed the way it was. You also had the federal government, you also had the Senate pass a crime bill, which, by the way, infringed on our Second Amendment in a ridiculous manner. I don't think the 90s was as carefree of a decade as people might would think. I would actually argue that maybe the 80s was. People oftentimes conflate the fact that the Cold War was going on is the reason why it was not. I don't think that's the case. The Soviet Union was already in massive decline. They were already declining actually in the mid-60s, but the thing you have to understand, and what I mean is when you actually look at everything that was going on there, obviously the military might was there, but the country itself was actually collapsing. The thing is this right here. When Obama was in office, a lot of people got the sense that the country was still somewhat carefree, when in reality our freedoms were being stripped every single day. The politics were absolutely ridiculous. You see Fast and Furious, you see Benghazi, and of course you see how it was that they had Hillary Clinton go out there and take the fall on the sword for him. Of course, she said the buck stopped with her when obviously the buck did not stop with the president, because he's the one who could have actually sent F-18s in there in that instant to maybe scare the, let's just say, the combatants off. Fact of the matter is this right here. A lot of people have that sense mostly because of what the media gave them. And they obviously think that today is bad. So maybe what it is that the threshold is much, let's just say, maybe their threshold or capacity for BS was much, much larger than others. But I just figured I would throw that out there. Now let's go ahead and end this video. Guys, let me go ahead and kind of end this video on this note right here. This right here was not meant to be an extremely long video. As a matter of fact, this right here was meant to be a video that was supposed to be a little bit more concise. A lot of times I kind of go in different directions. But I do need to say this right here. Clay Travis right now basically was brought in to be the replacement for Rush Limbaugh, as well as Buck Sexton. The great Rush Limbaugh. So you mean to tell me that you thought it was a good idea to replace Rush Limbaugh with a two-time Obama voter? I'm just going to kind of let that sit for a second and make you guys kind of think to yourself, maybe that, I'm not saying it is the reason for this, but as you guys maybe think that maybe the real reason why a lot of conservatives are upset about the fact that the Republican Party is not doing things that are actually, in fact, conservative. Did you ever think that maybe that right there might be leading to a lot of the discontent that we're having here on one side? The exact same way the left is having discontent on their aisle. It's just not as heavily reported. Of course, the left has the media, so therefore they can always change up the cycle every 2 seconds. But then again, if you go to these leftist channels and you see the crap that they bitch and complain about, trust me, they're not happy with the current situation, and they're demanding a lot of crazy, impossible stuff. And let's just say we'll be doing more videos on that in the future. Guys, I just figured I would throw this out here. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section, and I will see you guys later.